Hey guys, unfortunately, I will not be in class today. I have some family concerns going on, but I should be back tomorrow. But that doesn't mean we can't continue to learn. So what we're going to look at today is we looked at how do we write these linear equations in y equals mx plus b given the slope and the y-intercept, right? Slope m, y-intercept b. How do I write it given a graph, right? Find that y-intercept, that's the b, and then make a table with the slope and then use that slope m and then put it all together, right? So we've done the hard work. We've looked at how do we find slope from tables, how do we find slope from graphs, y-intercept from tables and graphs. Again, we're just putting it all together. All right. So what we're going to look at today is how do you find a y equals mx plus b linear equation from a graph, from a table. Excuse me. So what you guys need to do first before we actually look at this is you're going to be given a copy of today's assignment for you to take as notes. Okay. So when you come down to second 9 weeks, go to this week and go to Wednesday. You'll see Thursday's folder is open. There's nothing in it. But for Wednesday, you're going to see a link that says student copy for notes. So I'm giving you this for you to fill out so that way you have it. Right? It should be accessed. It should be ready to go. And I'm going to do a video here on top of this for you to open that. So when you open this, it's going to force you to make a copy. Right? We've done this before. You make a copy. And then it's going to say, here's some student copy for notes. Use the next slides to follow along to keep some notes for the steps. So we're going to go over the steps that you need to use to get from a table to a y equals mx plus b slope intercept form equation. So go ahead and pause the video now. Go open those up. And then once you come back, restart the video, and I will start going into the notes and what you need to fill in. All right, so go ahead and just pause now. Go to Schoology, or you're already in Schoology, but go down to the folder and open up today's notes. And then come back and restart. Okay, so at this point, you should be seeing the slides at your slides for copying. Okay, now you don't have the learning target on there, but it is, like I said, your learning target today, when you're done with these activities and these notes, is that you should be able to write a linear equation in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, where slope is m and the y-intercept is b, given a table. So Monday we looked at graphs. Friday we looked at if I just give you the numbers, can you substitute? And so today we're going to look at if I give you a table, can you figure out how to write this equation of a line? And so basically we're just looking at these representations. So here's your first slide of your notes. So step 1 is I want to find the slope using the table, finding the change in y over change in x. I did put a table this way now because I know a lot of you guys are not super comfortable with seeing tables this way. We call this the horizontal table because it's sideways. And so remembering that x is on top, y is on bottom. You guys are used to the vertical tables where x is on left, y is on right, but you need to be able to do both because when you get to algebra next year, you will see both sets of tables. All right, so when we're looking at finding slope from a table, right, we've spent a week on practicing slope from tables. Even in a graph, we find slope from a. All right, so step 1 for finding the slope, right, is I want to know, well, how are the y's changing? Are they increasing? Are they decreasing? And by how much? And so remember, we really only need 2, but we're going to look at both of these. So going from a 10 to a negative 16. So I'm not sure. So some way I can think about this is, well, I know I'm going down because I'm decreasing, going a positive to a negative. And I know from 10 to 0 is a decrease of 10. And I know 0 to negative 6 is a decrease of 6. So to go from a 10 to a negative 6, it's a negative 16. It's a drop of 16. From 6 to 18 is a drop or decrease of 12. So we notice they're not the same, and that's okay. Remember, we want to know the ratios. So we want to know, okay, well, what is this change compared to this change? What is the change of a decrease of 12 compared to the change in here? I do notice that I'm going from a negative to a positive, so I see that's an increase. I know from negative 4 to 0 is an increase of 4. I know from 0 to 4 is an increase of 4. That makes a total of an increase of 8. And then from 4 to 10, we can see that, so increase of 6. So again, some keys we can look at here, or I see that the y's are decreasing while the x's are increasing. So we're moving in opposite directions. Okay. So then that means that we have a negative slope, right? If we're moving in opposite directions, we're going to have a negative slope, which means our line is moving in a downward direction. So let's figure out what that ratio is. So I can say negative 16 over positive 8. And I know negative 16 divided by positive 8 is going to give me a negative 2. You can also check it with the other one. You get a negative 12 over a positive 6. And again, the ratio comes out to negative 2. So my slope here is negative 2. All right, so make sure you have all these notes. I'm going to give you a few seconds to make sure you got all this copied down. And then I will move on to the next slide. So if you need to pause and make sure this is all written down, or you can make yourself some notes down here, your own notes in the speaker box to remind you of what it is, the steps that we did to find this. So step 1 for finding the linear equation in slope-intercept form from a table is to find the slope. Okay, so now we're on the next slide, step 2. So make sure you move to this slide. If you haven't, pause and go move down. So remember, we want to look at the process. Is there a y-intercept? And to do that, we take all the x values and we multiply them by our slope. And in this case, like my first x value from the table is negative 4. And I'm going to multiply it by my slope of negative 2. Well, I know negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8. I'm going to do it for this one as well. Positive 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. And 10 times negative 2 is going to be a negative 20. Now, what I notice is that, well, they don't line up. Right? 8 is not 10, negative 8 is not negative 6, and 20 is not negative 18. So I have this extra step. Right? There's something I have to do in order to get that number to match my y value. Right? I need my value to match my output. And so what we need to do is do that extra step. Right? And so I know that 8 plus 2 is 10. I also know that in order to go from negative 8 to a negative 6, I need to add 2. And to go from a negative 20 to a negative 18, I need to add 2. We see that we have a consistent change here of plus 2. So that makes my y-intercept a positive 2. So that, again, these are all just reviewing these steps. Right? We haven't changed the step. We haven't done anything. At this point is when we had asked you to stop. So now we're taking it to the next step, and I'm asking you, can you write in a linear equation now? So we know the slope of this table. We know the y-intercept of this table. So let's go figure out what would that look like in an equation. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you to pause the video if you haven't, or if you need to, make sure you get all this written down. Remember, you can add any notes that you want to remind yourself down here in the bottom, and then move to the next slide. So I'll give you a few seconds to do that. Again, you can always pause this video and then move to the next slide. All right, so the last step, step 3 of writing this equation from a table is this. So step 1, we found the slope, change in y over change in x, right? Delta y over delta x. Then we found the y-intercept by looking at the process. So I take my slope, multiply it by x, and see, do I need to add a little bit? Do I need to subtract a little bit? Or is it right on? And then now we have both. So I know my slope was negative 2. I know that my y-intercept was plus 2. And so again, all we got to do is substitute and go back and look at our vocabulary. So when I look at slope, remember, slope is represented by the letter M because slope tells me how to move, right? When you start graphing these, that will make more sense in algebra. But slope tells us how to move. Are we moving down? Are we moving up? Are we moving steeply up? Are we moving steeply down? Is it flatter? So slope tells us how to move. That's why it's M. B is the y-intercept. That tells us where to begin. Right? In a one quadrant graph, it's definitely the beginning. When you graph these, you're going to want to start with the y-intercept in a mathematical sense too in a 4 quadrant. So B is the beginning, which means it's the y-intercept. M tells us how to move. That tells us the slope. So then now all I got to do is replace the letter M with negative 2. And then I got to replace B with positive 2. Now remember, I leave the plus sign because it's a positive. If this y-intercept was a -2, then we wouldn't write plus -2. We would just write -2. Okay, so that is your steps for writing an equation in slope-intercept form given a table. If you have any questions, please let me know. Shoot me an email. You do have a practice. It looks very similar to your graph one that you did. It should be good. It should be unlocked. I know there was some confusion last time, but that should be fine. And then make sure you submit those when you're done. If you have not completed your graph linear equations from Monday, make sure that is done as well. Tomorrow we're going to be mixing them up. I'm going to just give you a graph and say what's the linear equation and tables. So we're going to do more practice with this. Any questions, let me know. Obviously, you can pause, rewind this video as much as you want. Make sure that you have a copy of these notes. You can refer to them for your assignments. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Again, I apologize for not being there. But sometimes things just happen and we do the best we can with what we got. And so fortunately, we have this new avenue to communicate with. So again, guys, you're doing a great job, and I will see you guys tomorrow.